So you want to go to Disney, but you don't have anyone to go with, or you don't want to take your family, then this video is for you.
To all who come to our happy place, welcome to the No Guilt Disney podcast, where we have no guilt about our love for all things Disney solo traveling.
We are three Disney fangirls who probably travel to the parks a lot solo, maybe more than most people should. And we're perfectly okay with that.
Perfectly okay with that. Don't come at us. This one, we are all going to die on this hill. This is the No Guilt Disney solo travel podcast, right? Like, this is it. This is what you've been waiting for.
Yeah, most of my trips are solo these days, which I love. So excited to talk about that. Hello, everyone. My name is Theresa, and you can find me on socials at Gertie the Dino.
And Theresa did not really go anywhere. She's just been a really busy woman for the last couple of months. So everybody, this is Theresa. She's always been here. She's an OG. Like, for anybody that's new and is like, oh, what's this? No, Theresa. Yes, we just have Miss Theresa because life.
But I'm back today.
But life, yes. Okay.
My name is Jane, and you can find me at Real Mousewife WDW on Instagram. It's very early.
Good grief, woman. It is 10 o'clock.
I'm so excited for her to remember the email name. I'm already excited.
I'm drinking my coffee, trying to get myself prepared.
She's got a while. She's got to the end of the podcast to throw that one out. Hey, y'all. I'm Patty Holiday from No Guilt Universe. That's noguiltdisney.com, noguiltfangirl.com, noguiltlife.com, and No Guilt Travel. Yeah, just kind of the whole no guilt thing is what I do, which I think ties in perfectly with this discussion. And actually, fun fact, this discussion is how the No Guilt name came about. So I'll get into that in just a minute. But you can find me on all socials at No Guilt Life. Okay, for those that don't know, back in the day, in fact, I think I met both of you through my original blog, which was Margaritas, Miles, and the Mouse. That was a mouthful. Like, typing that out was so long. And it came about because I got super into the Run Disney community, and I am the type of person, I'm a deep ender. I like to Google stuff and I like to find things. I spend a lot of time on TikTok these days. Thanks to Jane for that influence. Yeah. So yeah, I wanted to find out everything I could about Run Disney, and surprise, surprise, there wasn't a lot of stuff about Run Disney at the time. So once I learned it, I decided I would blog about it and write about it. This is back in the day when like mommy bloggers were a really big thing. And that's what I started doing. And so it was Margaritas, Miles, and the Mouse. And it was basically because if I'm going to drink, it's a margarita. But typically I don't drink them unless I'm at Disney. And I'm only at Disney to go running. That was the situation, that it was the thought process of the name of the blog at the time. Okay. So I started this blog, and like 2 or 3 years later, I just wanted to expand. I wanted to change my focus. And I was at a blog conference talking to a blogging consultant about, like, help me come up with a name. He's like, tell me about you. Like, what are you all about? And I'm like, oh, I'm about Disney, but I don't want to be just about Disney on my blog. And he was like, okay. He's like, talk to me more about that. And I was like, okay, so here's the thing. And we just kind of devolved into this conversation about how it's kind of annoying that I like what I like, you like what you like, people like what you like, but like somebody always has to say something about it. And I would, every now and then, it didn't happen a lot, but I did get some pushback about like leaving my kids at home and going to Disney 4 times a year that then turned into 8 times a year that then turned anyway, because of the races. And I was just like, why does everybody have to like put you on this guilt trip? Like, moms already have so much guilt. Like, we don't need extra guilt. Like, why do you do this? And that's when he was just like, yeah, like, let's work with that. Like, no guilt, no, stop the guilt. And anyway, that's how noguiltlife.com came about. And the idea behind it was just, you like what you like, and there's nothing wrong with that. Don't let anybody make you feel any sort of way about what you want to do. Like, as long as your family's all on board, which mine absolutely has always been supportive and has always been fine with it. In fact, they prefer that I go to Disney without them. Long story, but I Disneyed them out at a very young age, and they literally told me enough. So it's all good. We're all good. We're all good here. These are our choices that we made. But that was how the name came about. And I just kind of ran with it with everything else that I started doing. And it's turned into this big career of solo travel and solo travel at Disney. A lot of the times for these races, a lot of the times for the Halloween party, for the Jolly Hollywood party, like all of those things, I will go and do them because I want to. And that's my answer, is because I want to. I think Jane and Theresa can also weigh in pretty big on the solo travel idea, because neither one of them have children. They certainly have friends. They certainly have people that they can travel with, but sometimes they can't. They don't want to. You want to do something that they don't want to do. And so you plan the trip. And we have some tips, some information to share with you, but also, I just really hope that anybody that's listening to this can take away, like, there's nothing scary about doing this on your own. There's nothing wrong with doing this on your own. It's exciting, it's fun, and don't worry about the kids. They'll be fine. Or your adult kids. My husband was the one that pouted the most when I started going on these trips, not the young ones. So that's what we have. And this all came about because Jennifer, who's in our Facebook group, just posed the question. She was like, do you guys ever like go on solo trips? And if you do you do character meals? And if you do, like, how do you take pictures? Like, what do you do? So we're going to talk about all of that and give you some information on what we do on our solo trips and kind of go from there with some help from the Facebook group, because I pulled a couple of comments that people made, so that it's not just the three of us that believe in solo travel. There's a whole wide group of us that think it's okay, absolutely okay, to go to Disney or anywhere you want to by yourself. Who wants to start first? What do you got? You want to tell us a little bit of your story or how you started, or specifically when it came to Disney travel, like, how did this all work out for you guys?
I guess I can talk a little bit about the traveling part, because I know, especially Jane, with being a local, it's a little different for her, kind of doing solo trips. But so for me, so my husband, he likes Disney, particularly Star Wars. He's very, very much into the Galaxy's Edge, but he does not have the same level of enthusiasm I do, particularly around, I love things like park history. I love some of these big events like
This
Destination
is
D
brand
and
new
D23.
information.
Right, like there's things like, it's just the stuff that I like tends to get a little bit more deep into Disney
Mhm.
than what he knows and is familiar with. So it's just we have different things we like to do at the parks. So I'll do a lot of my solo trips, but the one I have coming up in 2 weeks is for Destination D23. I'll plan a lot of them around these events, or just sometimes if there's things that I like and I know I want to do and he doesn't like, or I want to check out something new to figure it out if for when I'm going on a trip with my family later on.
Mhm.
There's just some things I think it's easier for me to check it out for myself first, kind of get an opinion on it. Especially I'm somebody who, when I am traveling with my entire family or a bigger group of people, I get really anxious that I'm going to suggest something new and everyone's going to hate it. Like,
Right.
I just want to make sure everybody has a good time. And I know if it just makes me feel more comfortable to go and try out some of these things first. So that's what a lot of my solo trips are around. Or if I just want to do something like a quick weekend where I don't have a lot of time, so I want to maximize it doing the stuff that I want to do.
Fair enough. Fair enough. Jade, what about yours? I mean, your solo trips are what? You roll in, you do one thing, and you leave. I mean, your solo trips are a little bit different since you're 5 minutes away from the gates of Hollywood Studios.
They are. I mean, certainly for the Florida parks, I have been at Disneyland for a solo day, but never a whole trip, because the second I say I'm going to Disneyland, somebody's going to Disneyland. I mean, I've got multiple others. It's usually like maybe either a day added on or a day after a trip. Like, we're doing a trip coming up, Patty and I, and you're flying in a day early, right? Like,
Mhm.
similar to that. So I've done that. And I mean, I just love doing the solo time because it gives me an opportunity to make my hit list. And I like to make lists and be like, I'm doing these things, and I can go and just do them and leave. And if I change my mind, I change my mind and I leave. Or if I don't want to do that and I want to do this, or I see something special, or I want to sit and I just want to stare at the pumpkins on Main Street for 47 hours, I could sit and stare at the pumpkins on Main Street for 47 hours. And it doesn't matter what everybody else's opinion is.
Correct.
We'll get into those pumpkins.
At some point, yes, we will. Yeah, no, I think that kind of sums up at least the bottom line as to what enjoyment we get out of it is we get to do whatever we want to do without worrying about hurting anybody's feelings or checking in or being, is this okay? Or whatever. Like, if
being on people's time.
Correct. And if, I was planning to go right, but then, oh, look, squirrel, and we go left. Okay, I can do that because I can do that. Like one of my favorite trips that I did was, it was for a race weekend. And I think I came in while all the runners, I want to say this was an springtime surprise or Star Wars weekend. It was an April trip, but I went into Magic Kingdom, rope dropped it, got in there super early. And I was like, what am I going to do today? Literally had no plans. So I walked in and I tried to get a tour. Tours were all sold out. So I was like, because that would have been fun to do by myself because I wouldn't have had to pay for anybody else or convince anybody else to go with me. Right. So that would have been great, but it didn't work out. So then I was like, all right, let's do something different. I think this was this was back in the day when FastPass was a thing and I had nothing planned. I had no FastPasses, booked in advance. So I was like, what can I do without touching FastPass? Like it was just solo person. How much can you get done at rope drop without doing that? I got so much accomplished. It was mind blowing. And I got to do even the weird, random things that Theresa probably does on every single trip, but that no one in my family is down with, which is Carousel of Progress, right? People Mover. I rode that like 3 times that morning because I was like, I'll just get back on it. I'll just go and do it again because I love People Mover. It was just a very chill day. I went and I found Pascal over at the bathrooms, over at the Rapunzel bathrooms. There's these little hidden Pascals all over the place. And I spent like an hour over there just doing that because it was interesting and it was fun and it was making me happy. So yeah, there's a lot of reasons that you may not originally think that Disney World is a place for the solo person, but I'm telling you, you can go and just have an incredibly cool, chill time. Or to Theresa's point, you can pound it out. You can just go, and get so much more done.
Well, and I always joke too that for those who don't know, I have some progressive vision loss, and I always joke that when I do my solo trips, because my day-to-day life, I don't necessarily notice changes. It's kind of my barometer to determine how I'm doing, like how well can I get around, and I think Disney is a great place for that. And this is for anybody who's maybe a disabled traveler thinking about doing Disney solo. It's a really, really good place to do a solo trip simply because you are in the Disney bubble. And they really take care of their guests with disabilities. So if it's something you're thinking about, it's a good enclosed environment where, especially if you've gone to Disney a bunch of times, you kind of know the layout, you kind of have a good idea of what you can and can't do, but there's always a cast member there to help you if you need it. So even though you're going solo, it's not like you're going in isolation. So for me, that's one of like the huge benefits about doing solo travel at Disney.
Yeah, no, that completely makes sense. Okay, let's talk about, I don't know, some tips or some suggestions, or how do you handle certain circumstances or situations? So I'm going to go back to Jennifer and her question about sitting down at a character meal, and what do you do when you are a solo person having a character meal?
I will say I do think character meals, they can be challenging if your goal is to get pictures with the characters, simply because you do have to hope that there's a cast member free at the time that characters are coming around. Characters, they kind of go on a schedule and they'll stop by your table, and you'll have a chance to see all of them during the course of the meal, but there may or may not be a cast member there to take the photo for you. So I would say number 1, practice your selfie skills. Check, hold your hand out, maybe meet a few characters in the parks and see how well you do with, how far you have to hold your hand out to get the selfie. Or, Disney's a friendly place in the same way that you can find somebody when you're walking through the parks, ask them to take a photo for you. I was like, check with just the guests who are also dining around you, ask like, hey, I'm here alone. Would you mind, like, as the characters are coming by, taking a quick photo for me? And most people generally are pretty agreeable to do that. Maybe if they're have a lot of kids, if their hands are full, kind of look around. But usually you can find somebody who's willing to just take a
Definitely.
quick photo for you if you're traveling solo.
And I will say that as someone who takes tons of photos, like that is one of my great joys about going to the parks is taking photos. One, if you see me in a park, I will absolutely take not one photo, but an entire photo shoot for you. I love it. It's like my favorite thing to do. And the other thing is get yourself a good case or something. Like this is a case that I use all the time, mostly because it's pretty and has colors on it, but it has a pop socket on it so I can hold it for my TikTok time. But it moves, so I can adjust where I use it, and I can use it as a stand to stand it up if I'm going to do a vertical, or I can put it in the middle and then stand it on its side. So I will take photos, on using like the garbage can / food and wine tables, like leaning my phone on them and positioning them so that I'm able to take a photo. I use auto timer a lot. I know Patty, we use that. I forgot where we used it. We've taken a bunch of photos lately, but I used auto timer a lot. I'll put it on the ground to take photos, which give you like different vantage points. But certainly for photos, I would say either get a case that can do it, or sometimes you can get like little stands, like little like holders. Like you can't use a selfie stick. That's a no for the park. But there are certain little like stands that you can use.
There are, and I'll link it in show notes and give you guys some information on these things too, these little items that you can bring with you as a solo traveler. Keely in the Facebook group said that she got a little $12 tripod and small enough to fit in a lounge fly. So we are talking, probably something like this size. It came with a remote that connects to my phone with Bluetooth to click a picture. So if you want to get a little high tech, like that's another option, is these phones do all kinds of crazy things. So you can totally I used to do that when I would try to take pictures of myself with the selfie sticks back in the day. And I'm kind of glad selfie sticks aren't that much of a thing anymore. Just a side
Me
note.
too. Me too.
Yeah, because I can never make them work right.
Anyway. I also have a stand that folds, and it actually will like hook onto your tray table while you're flying. So it'll hold your phone so you can watch stuff. And then it folds in like 400 ways. And I use that as a stand a lot too, but it folds up to like, a couple of inches. So it goes right in my bag. That one's super easy too. So I'll make sure that we get that link for you.
And if you don't have kids with you, you can throw all kinds of stuff in your bag now because you don't have to carry their stuff.
It's really you can have 78 lipsticks. Ask me how I know.
78 is
and if you don't have kids with you at character dining, it gets to be your experience with the characters, because I think I see that a lot. Like when I go with my nephews and we did the character dining again, and this is purely a thing about me. I'm so concerned with making sure everybody else gets that great experience that I was like, I don't meet the characters at character dining. So when you're going solo, and this is just general, across the board, like you actually get to make sure, the memories that you see everybody else making that you're helping other people make, you get to make that for yourself. And so Disney solo trips are absolutely a form of self-care and, making sure that you are prioritizing yourself, which we all need to do. So if you ever get pushback, say that it's your self-care trip.
It is, absolutely. Melissa actually said the same thing. She was like, do it. I do solo a lot, and I never regret doing any of it. Tours, parties, character meals, races, always worth it. Melissa, you're our people. So yeah, I totally agree with that. And from another perspective, from somebody with a family, I've got 4 kids, my husband. So it's 6 people. So when we travel to Disney, we have to stay in a big room or get 2 rooms. I have to buy all those fools tickets because nobody has an annual pass but me, because it doesn't make sense for them to get annual passes. And then obviously they want to eat like all the time. And those character meals, it's so weird. And character meals are so expensive. So what I'm trying to say is it adds up a lot when you go on those trips with your family. And just one thing to keep in mind is if you're going by yourself, you can cut a lot of those costs like into nothing, into zero. I mean, people asked me early on, like, well, how do you do this? How do you go to Disney all the time? Well, in my case, the annual pass back in the day was like $400. So I'd get for a $400 annual pass. I know, hilarious, really cute, adorable. But I'd get an annual pass and then make sure that I went enough days that I got my money's worth just on the days alone. I always stayed in hotels with multiple people. This is a solo, but not a solo trip. Obviously, I would hook up with friends and be with friends, but like cutting that cost down. Nowadays, I stay a lot of the times by myself because that's my self-care is I really like a hotel room by myself. It is just really one of my favorite things. So I like that a lot. But back then I would always cut the costs, that way. I think also if you are going as a solo person, you could even stay off property a little easier, I think, than it's as important to stay on property for the sake, Teresa's situation excluded, but for the sake of getting back and forth, as a solo person, I don't need to I don't need the ease of going back and forth to my hotel all through the day if I don't want it. If I do want it, it's just me and I can get back and forth pretty easily. So it's fine. It's different when you are pushing strollers through the parking lot, loading them onto trams, getting back and forth from the Magic Kingdom, that whole hoopla, and wanting to come back later on that night. Oh my gosh, with kids and family, it's a lot. But if you're a single person, it's a lot more manageable and just a lot easier to do.
Well, and along with that, kind of thinking about accommodations. So I had
Mm-hmm.
two notes about this as solo travel. I'll piggyback on that one. If you've ever considered doing a split stay, so much easier to do it as a solo person for the purpose of having to move your luggage from one place to another. I
Yeah.
will typically do that if there's a resort that's maybe, a pricier one or a DVC resort that I'm like, I've never been to. I just want to check it out. I might do a one
Mm-hmm.
night stay there at the start of my trip and then stay in a value afterwards. So split stays, again, solo travel, it's a really good opportunity if you want to check out multiple resorts on one trip. But to my other point, staying at the values afterwards, the way that the value rooms are configured now, not at Art of Animation is a little different, but at the All Stars and at Pop Century, because they have the Murphy beds rather than like a traditional second bed in the room,
Mm-hmm.
I always leave the Murphy bed up and kind of leave it as the table setting. It makes the rooms feel so big.
It
And I
does.
always have a spot, especially on the table, to drop my stuff off, to be able to sit there if I'm bringing any food back to my room. For dapper days, I will take advantage of all that extra space so I can use the ironing board to iron my outfits. But yeah, I think the values are a really, really good option for anybody who's doing solo travel. Not just for the cost savings, but because of the room layouts. And Pop is my favorite because it also has
100%.
Skyliner, which we've talked about in our Skyliner Resort episode.
Yeah, go listen to that one if you haven't.
Well, and to your point there, Teresa, there is within DVC, there obviously is like the studio rooms that are like the standard hotel rooms, but they also now have at Riviera a tower suite, which is
Mm-hmm.
maximum it sleeps is two people. It's a very, very small room. But if you're a solo traveler and you have DVC or you're going to rent DVC points, which we will have in another podcast, how to do that. That room is perfect because you're one person. It has a Murphy bed. It pulls down. It's got all your essentials. It's like very European, it's like, a very, very tight space, but like you don't really need a ton of space when you're traveling solo and you don't have, 17 pieces of luggage unless you're me or Patty, right? So
Right.
there are options out there, and it's certainly like you can't stay in those rooms if you are with a family. Ooh, I hit my mic. So, that's another option too.
Very European, but with air conditioning.
But with air conditioning.
I mean, listen. Yeah. Okay. So, what else do we have? What else do we want to touch on that's a highlight of your solo trips? I think cost is probably my favorite highlight. Is I feel like, and I also feel like I can splurge on some things. And again, I recognize I'm coming from a different background than most people. I am doing this as a travel agent who wants to try things out so that I can recommend them to you or tell you not to do them, that sort of thing. I do come as a content creator, as a writer, as a blogger, as a YouTuber, I guess now. I don't even know what we're doing here. But all those things. So a lot of things that I do, I purposely go and do hashtag for the blog, right? I do it for you guys. I'm a giver. But if I was bringing my entire family, that's 6 people, that multiplies the cost. And I may not be able to do all of those things for 6 people, but that also factors into my recommendation for you. Like, it's good for one-on-one, but I would not spend this money for everybody to go do this, like that kind of thing. So for me, I think cost factors in a lot of this. Again, in my case, it helps that I am able to, it's my job. So I'm able to justify a lot of things that I spend the money on in that way. But it also just, it can just be such a lower cost experience than you probably think it is if you go by yourself. You certainly can do some bare bones and still get a lot of magic in there in a short period of time if that's what you're looking for. And you just back to self care. You just need a weekend away. Disney's a good place to do it. Definitely. So what else would you guys say is a good thing to bring up about solo travel at Disney?
So I want to mention something that is a hot button issue with Miss Patty, which is single rider lines.
I was like,
Oh, wait,
wait,
is this going to become another math conversation?
Oh, I mean, I was absolutely ready to girl math when she was like, it's cheaper if, and I was like, oh, I can tell people how their solo trip is free. But yes, this potentially could wind up as an even odds math conversation again.
We're not going to go there. They can go listen to that conversation because.
No,
but I love taking the
do,
pictures of me in selfie with nobody sitting next to me and sending them to Jane and saying, "Yeah, tell me again, there shouldn't be a solo rider line."
I'm not saying that there shouldn't be a solo and
There
a
should be.
single rider line. I'm a solo person. Like, I would love one, but Disney World does not have as many single rider lines as Disneyland does. So I just mentioned this because, if you're taking a single trip and you're debating, Disneyland might be a better option for you. Or if you're used to Disneyland and you're coming to Disney World for the first time, then you should know that we don't necessarily have a bunch of single rider options. Single rider lanes are great because they fill in all available space, which is Patty's argument. Out here on the newer rides, what they have done is they create 2 separate lines when they sort you. One side is evens and one side is odds. And when you fill a full car of all odds, it lines up. And if you fill a full car of all evens, it lines up. So
in theory, but it doesn't always work.
In theory. Well, I think it depends on the cast member and their mathematics skills, and we probably don't give them a proper math test. Because, like,
it could be guys, that, or we pay them enough to math? Listen,
they have a lot on their plate. That's my point, right? Like, they're like, whatever. I missed the guy. Who cares?
Exactly. And I get that. But yeah, that's actually a really strong argument for Disneyland, as always, to consider if you're a solo traveler. Is you do have more opportunities to not cut the lines, but you can get shorter lines with doing the single. Not always. Radiator Springs Racer can get outrageously long, even as a single rider line.
Correct.
But the other ones, I think I've always had very quick luck, very easy luck. Just boom, 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 fill in those spaces for people and make new friends as we're riding along together.
Yeah, and oh, go ahead.
No, I mean, one of the great things I was going to say, you just said make new friends, and on Guardians of the Galaxy, because they do load the odds together, whether it's odds or whether they were loading in a single rider line, we always manage to wind up with like one extra person. And when you get that person that is riding for the very first time, it is like the joy of our existence. We're like, oh my God, we get to relive it all over again.
My favorite is riding with the little kid who's never been on it before. And I'm like, how do they handle weird? Because this ride is just weird, and they're like, oh, they like weird, and I was like, okay, we'll see.
So I was going to mention, so for Walt Disney World, I did make note of what the 4 attractions are with single
Hmm.
rider lines. So it's Expedition Everest at Animal Kingdom, Rock and Roller Coaster and Millennium Falcon Smuggler's Run at Disney's Hollywood Studios, and then Test Track at Epcot. But I did also want to mention, just because those are the 4 with dedicated single rider lines, there are attractions like Soarin' and Tower of Terror, where as you're going up, especially when you're getting close to the boarding area, they sometimes will ask, like, are there any parties of one? And you'll be able to kind of move up when they're trying to fill the attractions. So just because the ride does not have a dedicated single rider line, like, just pay attention, especially as you're getting close, because they will pull in single riders for if they're just trying to fill the cars.
Yeah, I've
When
got a
we
whole
call for
list.
them,
They
that's
do.
also when Patty calls me and says, I just want you to know that they just called for another single rider in insert ride here. And that's why we need a single rider lane everywhere.
Listen, I want what I want. Okay. But yeah, no, I have a whole list of them from both parks, for you if you are wanting to check them out. Like Space Mountain at Disneyland has one sometimes. We've seen Soren have a dedicated single rider line sometimes. Like it's not very often that that happens. And that's at Disney World. Like they've had him at Disneyland for a long time, but then they took it away. So again, yeah, it happens. Sometimes it doesn't happen. Always worth walking up and saying, hi, where's the single rider line? If they say we don't have one, be like, all right, get in line. But yeah, if you're soloing, that's definitely a good time saver, a good, quick, easy peasy trick to maximize your day.
So, and I do kind of want to mention there's some people that might feel like, oh my God, I can't go there. Everybody else is in groups and with
Hmm.
families, and I'm going to be like the single weirdo at the park. And I'm going to let you in on a tip. No one cares. No one is watching you. I mean, of course, like people always watch people or whatever, but like no one is following you around being like, that person has no friends. As a matter of fact, they're probably like, oh my God, that person is living such a great life. So like just go. Like no one, don't worry
Yes.
about everybody else. Like everybody else's opinions are none of your business. Just go. Just do the thing. Have the fun.
Have a good time. And as somebody who has been there with their family and has been like, herding cats and pulling my hair out, and I look over and I see the single person just cruising along, eating their popcorn and just sitting back and watching, and I'm just like, living the dream, girl, living the dream. So yeah, nobody's thinking anything. Nobody's thinking anything about you, to be honest. But honest, they're definitely probably not thinking anything bad. And if they are, no guilt life, baby. Just no guilt life it. Like just roll with it. It's worth it. It's worth it. It's so fun. Um what Oh, I wanted to talk about dining. So this has been my experience when I have gone in to book a dining reservation. By finding it, I always start with finding a table for one. A lot of times I strike out. They don't have a table for one. Put in a table for two, magically they have a table for two. So I just want to put this out as your hack, your tip for dining. If you are dining by yourself, go ahead, try the table for one. If you get what you want, cool. If you don't, take your table for two, book it, and then immediately go back in and modify it to a table for one. And easy peasy, works every single time. And that way they get a proper head count, but you get the table that you were looking for. And it's one of those things that, like, visually, if you can imagine, they do have tables where they seat two people at. The other tables they have will seat four people at. Almost always, I get put at a table for two people, not at a table for four people. So I'm not taking up, anybody's big table as being a single person. But for whatever reason, they don't want to book a single person. It's kind of rude, Disney. But you can make it work if you go ahead and put in for two and then modify it.
Yeah, and if there's also some, if you're looking at some of the signature restaurants, there are a few that do have bar seating. So, and some of
Hmm.
the lounges also. So, if you're looking, and again, we're talking about, splurging, but splurging on things as a solo person, this is a really good opportunity to try some of those signature dining. So I know that like California Grill, Jico, and Flying Fish are all they all have like a bar area, and so that's something that, like I said, if you can't get a reservation, you can definitely just walk up when you get there and ask like how long is the seating for the bar. But it's a good time to try out some new things that you haven't done because you're concerned about the cost when you're going with a lot of people.
Absolutely, absolutely. All
But I
right.
also do for my solo trips. That's usually when I have a running list of all like the quick service places or even like
Hmm.
little kiosks that I haven't gone to. Sometimes when I'm there solo, I don't want to sit down and do a big meal all the time because I do kind of want to be on the go and get a lot of things done. So I think it's great if you are able to plan around any of the Epcot festivals. They always have the food booths, so you can kind of go pick one or two things and graze around the world, or kind of taking advantage of all the quick service. So if you are somebody who feels uncomfortable sitting down at a restaurant and
By
a
yourself,
table
yeah,
service restaurant by yourself, there's so many quick service options, so many that also have the mobile ordering, so you can just go get
absolutely.
your food, pick it up, and be on your way. But yeah, so if you're not comfortable sit down dining, so many options where you don't have to worry about that. And like I said, in so many lounges where you kind of get that nice blend of sit down dining, but also really quick and that you can do by yourself and not feel awkward.
And this is a weird thing that just kind of popped into my head, but do you know which park do you feel like is the most solo traveler friendly park? Like, which one do you feel most at home walking around as a solo traveler?
I'm sure you're all going to be
Oh,
shocked by
oh,
what I
buzz in. I'm
pick.
gonna buzz in. I'm gonna buzz in. She's gonna pick Epcot, and I'm gonna pick Disney's California Adventure.
Fair. I was gonna say for whatever reason, and this is very weird, but I think Animal Kingdom is the place where I
And
just
that's
don't
number
feel.
2 on my list.
Yeah, I just don't. I, Listen, I didn't say I liked Animal Kingdom. I just said that being there as a solo person, like I honestly feel like I don't know if it's the tree. I don't know what it is. I don't know if it's the just the
It could be like
overall
a
vibe.
lot of the outside. Yeah, like it's a
Yeah,
lot like you're like walking through a
a
zoo and a
park and a
park and
zoo, not
very,
a zoo,
yeah,
but a zoo. Yeah,
not a
exactly.
zoo.
Not a zoo, and that's what it feels like. It just feels like very chill and like you're walking, like you said, just a day out at a park, like literally at a park. And so I think that would be something to kind of keep in mind is if you are feeling some sort of way or some kind of anxiety, maybe put Animal Kingdom on your list and try that out and see how you feel about it.
Those are definitely the two parks that have the most to explore. They
Mm-hmm.
have like the most space that's not taken up, by attractions or by,
Mm-hmm.
lines and queues, restaurants. I think they have the most like little areas like as you're walking around that again, if you're going quickly with your family, if you're distracted by your family getting to attraction to attraction, you're gonna miss the details. And those are the two they've taken the most care to put these subtle details in there or things that you can just kind of walk around and find, like the Tree of Life trails I think
Yeah.
are a great example. Kind of that's you're not necessarily going to spend your time on a big family trip looking for all the different animals around the Tree of Life and like carved into it. Also the actual animals around the Tree of Life. But I think yeah, Animal Kingdom is great just for having that. Like you just want to take your time. You
Mm-hmm.
want to take your time walking around and just experiencing the entire environment that park puts you in. Same
Agreed.
with Epcot, World Showcase in particular. There are so many nooks and crannies and just little areas within the pavilions themselves that if you're typically just kind of walking across it to get from, Frozen After Ever After to Remy's Ratatouille adventure, you might miss things that are deep within the pavilions. Morocco is my favorite pavilion for that in particular because it just kind of
Perfect
keeps winding
example.
winding through
Yeah.
places.
Yeah.
So yeah, those like Epcot's always going to be my number one, but yeah, Animal Kingdom was absolutely my number two park for just exploring.
Why do you like Disney California Adventure, Jane?
What do you think, Patty?
Campus.
There's
Campus.
nothing better than sitting at Pim's and watching the characters roam. So like you're just like you're submerged in it and you don't have to go anywhere. And they also have a pretzel as big as my head So like I can sit there and that soundtrack is just a lullaby.
It's the soundtrack and it's the characters for sure. And I love sitting there watching the kids meet these characters. Like even if I'm not with my kids, I can still appreciate like the excitement and the wild experience of seeing Black Panther walk out in front of you for the first time and just being like, what? So yeah, that's definitely that's a good one too.
And I think, people watching generally is a great thing to do as a solo traveler. So the California adventure, when I was there
Hey, we
for
just nobody's watching you, and now we're like
right,
going, but
you're
you can
watching
watch
everyone
everybody
else.
else.
No, when I was there for D23 Expo, no, I did do this with friends, but we did a reservation at the al fresco dining at
Mhm.
Carthay Circle, which is like right near the center of California Adventure. And it was just really nice because you're sitting out on the patio area. And again, it's a great chance to just sit there and be in the environment. Like you don't, for me, thinking of doing that, like I could absolutely do that as a solo traveler because I don't want to necessarily be there holding up a conversation with somebody. I just want to be in the moment, and there's so much activity happening around there. You've got the red car trolley going by. You
Yeah.
have like the musical performances that they have at the park kind of like going along the way. But it's just great to like hear the sounds of Disney. Like, I don't know how to explain it, but like, people being excited, people seeing these characters and all this stuff for
Yep.
the first time. Like
Yep.
just the sounds of Disney generally that are, human sounds of Disney. I don't know how to explain it, but yeah, I love
Listen, we're
just
Disney
being in those
dorks.
moments.
We love those. Yeah, we
Yeah.
get it. We get you. We get you. And all three of us, I mean, I'm not going to go as far as say I have chills, but I did just sit there and go, "Oh, I can't wait. We're going in like 12 days, Jane, right?"
12 days.
So, yeah, I can't wait to get back to our happy places. Two more things I just want to kind of wrap up with. These are some comments that were in the Facebook group. Tara says, I'm afraid to post this, but I think I actually prefer going to the parties alone. Okay, so somebody had said, what about the Mickey's Not So Scary or the Christmas parties? Like, would you go to one of those by themselves? And Jane's over there saying, absolutely, heck yeah, her favorite thing to do. For people that didn't know, before COVID hit, there was this Mickey's Not So Scary Halloween party pass. Was it like $300 that you paid for that thing?
It was. It was
And
like
then
I want to say it was 300 or like 350. It was like not expensive.
it was
Ish.
considering, and she could go to any of the parties any night, right?
I think it was like any party except for like maybe Halloween night might have been the only
Gotcha.
one that I couldn't go to, but it was fantastic. I mean, obviously everyone knows my Halloween love. It's already Halloween in my house, and yeah, so I was able to go to all of the parties, and my favorite part about that was I would go with friends, right? We would do the party the way you normally would and say like, okay, this is our Halloween party. We're going to do, all the things, which nobody can ever do all the things. So you have to prioritize. And when I had that party pass, I was able to go and like one day I would be like, I'm just going to wait for characters or, I'm going to go. And like one day I was telling Patty, we had gone to, Not So Scary a couple weeks ago. And I was like, I literally sat on Main Street for like 2 hours one time. And I just did not, it was like, I waited for the parade. So I had my great spot for the parade,
Mhm.
but I just like sat on Main Street and enjoyed it. And particularly with the parties, after that, like first half an hour ish, the front of the park is completely empty
It
because
is.
everyone is off trick or treating, riding rides, standing in lines for characters, like doing all the things in the other lands of the park, but
Mm-hmm.
the front of the park completely empty. So I am a big fan of going to those parties by yourself, especially since, if there's competing priorities, like
Correct.
Patty and I, we're wonderful travelers together. So like, don't misunderstand us when we bicker. That's what we do. But like Patty is team ride all the rides, although we might have convinced her. And like, I'm trick or treating because I don't get to do that anywhere else in my life. But we did a little bit of both this last time. We did. We rode one ride. We rode one ride. We rode Tron.
I don't think Tron counts because we had to get a virtual queue.
Is it a ride? Yes. Did we go on it? Yes, it counts. But the point would be, if I was going by myself, I could trick or treat, I could take pictures, I could make those choices. You know, if Patty was going by herself, she could be like, well, I did all of the rides because that was what I wanted to do. She's not so big into parades and fireworks, you know, whereas like the parade is more of a priority for me. So like you just get to make those choices. And for me,
Absolutely.
I say, especially for those parties, the parties are expensive. And they're, you know, a very short amount of time, but go. Like if you want to go.
If
You
you
will
have
have a
the
great time.
opportunity and want to, or are on the fence, like there was somebody I was following on, I can't remember if he's Instagram or if he's, maybe he's everywhere. But anyway, I'm following some guy who's there now for like a conference for work. So it's just him by himself, and he's doing conference stuff during the day. And then he's gone to the party by himself. He went, rode rides, went to Epcot the other night, which by the way, he's probably one of your friends, Theresa. I can't think of his name right off the top of my head, but you probably know this guy because he's definitely on Twitter. But anyway, yeah, he's like having the best, but that's like our point is like, if you are, even if you're not in a position to like plan a trip to go by yourself, but you happen to be in Orlando for whatever reason, and you're like, I don't know if I want to go to the parks by myself. Oh my gosh, go and have the best time ever. It's just a different experience than when you go with your family or when you go with friends. And you may discover a little something about yourself that you really like to spoil yourself and take care of you and not feel any guilt about that because you shouldn't. Go ahead.
I think we should also talk about one other thing that I think people would want to know about, which is Run Disney Races as a solo runner and
Perfect.
a solo traveler.
Let's do it.
That I would say, you know, all the things that we've said about solo travel apply to Run Disney, right? It's really safe, which is a big thing about Disney. It's very safe. Doesn't mean it's perfectly safe. Like you always still have to like take your precautions and whatever. It's still the world. So they can't keep everything out, but it's a relatively safe place for you to go by yourself. And then like going to the races, like I used to race like before I had any friends. I mean, like I had friends in like another life, but like before I had Disney friends like Patty and Theresa, I used to show up at races by myself, you know, and like I liked it, and like I had my own like rituals and like things I would do, and still to this day I do some of them. But if you are coming and you're solo because you don't have someone to travel with, come do the race. And if you want to meet people, you can meet so many people at these races. There are a million Facebook groups. There's Facebook groups, there's our Facebook group, there's solo traveler Facebook groups, there's Disney running Facebook groups.
Yeah.
And all of these groups have tons and tons of like opportunities to meet other people. So if you are a traveler, a runner who maybe wants to try Run Disney and hasn't tried Run Disney because you don't have someone to travel with, come. Like you will find people, and then before you know it, you'll be like me, who has a million friends and inside the box of my computer, and then I see them at races.
No, it's true. It's true. And that I think you know, there is just such a community to Disney in general, and some of those big huge groups, I think it's a little bit harder to find your people because there's also a lot of
Agreed.
bickering and whatever, which our group is a little bit smaller, and it's nice because we're getting to know people a little bit more, a little of their personalities and whatnot. But yeah, I absolutely think that there's some great opportunities to find new friends if you want to, even if it's just standing in a corral and chit chatting with somebody. Again, Disney people are nice people for the most part, and you will find somebody to chat it up with, you know, while you're there at those races by yourself. But yeah, Theresa, you're gonna do that half marathon, and you're running by yourself at this point, right? Like you don't, or did you find somebody?
Yeah, I do have a running. So they have the runners with disabilities. So I do have a running guide with me, but particularly just again with my vision stuff. I don't see well in like low light, but also I'm very sensitive to bright lights. So in the spots in the early morning where it's dark and then you suddenly have a floodlight on you,
could be a problem.
Just someone to make sure I am not running into the cones, that I'm going the right direction. If if my surroundings are just not clear to me. So I do have a running guide just to shout which way I need to turn at different points if needed.
Good.
But yeah, to your point, kind of thinking about these experiences with other people, I think we'll probably talk about some like Disney splurges in a future episode. But
It's a
thinking
good
of
one.
the tours, like a tour is a nice splurge again that you can. It's people who are super interested in whatever that tour is, something about Disney that you can easily make friends. I did want to mention one in particular because I was looking up the currently available tours when we were doing this, and I saw something really interesting about the Wild Africa Trek, which is available at Disney's Animal Kingdom. It's one where you get to go behind the scenes, you get some, experiences with the animals. They mentioned specifically that they have complimentary photo services as part of this
They
tour.
do.
So they have a trained photographer who's there taking photos of everything, and you'll get a photo code that you can download the images afterwards. So I think, if you're kind of, going solo, you might not be in as many pictures or be able to, kind of have
Right.
those memories back with you. The Wild Africa Trek seems like a really good option for people who are going solo because they will document the entire experience for
They
you.
do, and they're great pictures too. I've seen some of them. I mean, they have a professional photographer hanging out there with you. So yeah, they do a really nice job with those. Definitely a good option on that. Which again, like we're planning on a lot of different content opportunities here, and I think tours. I love tours. You guys also know I love things like the dessert parties and the special one-off things, particularly from a point of view of should you do it or this is what you get out of it and this is what you don't. I still owe a couple of write-ups that I think we talked about at the Hojo Mojo Casa House about the one that I did at Disneyland. So if you are curious about that particular fireworks experience, I did talk about it. If you want to go watch that or listen to it, that's there for you. But yeah, Megan in our Facebook group also threw out, she was just like, basically she has agreed with everything that we have talked about today. And she said, traveling with friends and families offers their own joys and headaches. Traveling alone, you just have to worry about you and what you want. And you only have to pay for one person, one ticket, one meal, etc. She also threw out there that single rider lines are your oyster, which I thought was a cute way to sum that up. So yeah, there's a lot of good ways and reasons that you may want to consider doing single rider or single trips in the future. Jane, go ahead and wrap us up here and let everybody know where they can find us.
So if you have other questions about solo travel or Disney in general, you can find us in our Facebook group, which is No Guilt Disney, or you can email us at noguiltdisneypod@gmail.com.
And make sure you join us each week on the No Guilt Disney podcast because, as Patty likes to say,
it is no fun to fangirl the no guilt solo traveler life alone. Bye, y'all.